Good energy in the room.
You really lit up the room. Yeah. So thank you everyone for making it. We are really excited about talking about the wallet space in general because we feel like it is the entry point for everybody into Web3. Hello? Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So it is wallets are the entry point for everybody into Web3, and we'd love to know more about wallets now and beyond. So a lot of talks in the space have been about account abstraction. So maybe we can start with a small round of introductions, and then I have a set of questions for each of you, and then some common questions on the space itself. So, Christian, I know you've introduced yourself, but we have had new people.
Yeah, just really quick. So I'm the product lead for MetaMask Snaps at Consensus.
Hello, my name is David Sneider. I'm one of the co-founders at a project called Lit Protocol, which is a distributed key management network that provides signing and encryption. So wallets are a synonym for that.
Hello, I'm Lukas. I'm co-founder of Safe. We're building a modular smart account and are trying to build an ecosystem around it of 50 plus wallets and applications that leverage that smart account to build cool account abstraction use cases.
Thank you so much. Maybe I can start with a question for you, Christian. So with the current wave of account abstraction wallets being the solution for wallet UX and being endorsed by the Ethereum Foundation with the EIP out, what does MetaMask see the wallet space evolving into?
Yes, so we are actually working with various providers on different account management options. So our vision is to move away from the seat recovery phrase as the primary way that users manage their accounts in MetaMask, and we're experimenting with different types of wallets, and we're doing that through Snaps. So Snaps allows us to make MetaMask completely modular and even change various wallet primitives such as the accounts and the account management model. We announced at DevConnect Paris over the summer a beta program of supporting different account types through Snaps, and that's something that we're actively working on. And we see it as a huge, this just died. We see this as a huge opportunity that we're definitely wanting to be part of.
Thank you so much for that. A question for you, David. Lit Protocol is key infrastructure in the space, pun intended. And you've been around for quite some time in the space. And what are some key UX pieces you see are missing from today's wallet?
Yeah, so we've been in R&D for just about 3 years with the network launch, like the initial network launch in the next several weeks. And in terms of some of the UX improvements, certainly the ability to do embedded wallets is a pretty exciting frontier, just in the context of there being less steps for people moving into Web3. The other thing that I'm really excited about that we just started talking about publicly this week is essentially combining the power of a crypto domain like .ens or .nft with a distributed key. The project that we have for this, we've been calling it a domain wallet. If you want to check it out, it's domainwallet.id. But basically, from a UX perspective, see this as the ability to support an embedded wallet workflow, but then having a named account, like a human-readable name associated with that account, such that somebody can sign up on app A and then go to dApp B, type in their account name, and then if they've got certain authentication methods, let's say it's like they sign in with Google and then do a secondary authentication method with their auth app or SMS, when they go to dApp B, they type in their account name, they're prompted to log into Google, perhaps get a text message that says, are you trying to log into this app? Click yes to confirm. And basically, the hypothesis that we have here is that the paradigm that starts to emerge out of this is that for people who don't want to be their own bank and are not interested in self-custody for whatever reason, longer discussion there, they are essentially using their Web2 credentials to sign into their Web3 account. And then the Web3 account can sign into any given dApp, can process transactions, et cetera. And so named accounts for distributed keys, I think, is where we think the frontier of UX is. And then it's obviously very exciting because these named accounts are represented by NFTs. So in the context of gaming, somebody could build up a bunch of reputation on a given account and then sell that, essentially sell their work. It's not too dissimilar to token-bound accounts, but we're doing it at the level of the ECDSA key, essentially the cross-chain key, but it's conceptually similar to token-bound accounts as well.
Very interesting. And Lukas, I think Safe has a very unique approach when it comes to account abstraction, and compared to players like, say, a Biconomy, where modularity exists, or maybe the right word to use here would be the flexibility, is more on the infrastructure layer. But you have a protocol layer that's built on top of this account abstraction layer. So how, what are the design choices you made, and what are the trade-offs while developing this kind of a model for Safe?
I would actually say Safe and Biconomy work quite similarly there, where both think about smart accounts as something that should be modular and programmable, where you add functionality over time. You might start with a simple smart account that it's just controlled through a hardware wallet, and then you want to go multi-sig, and then you want to add a session keys module or recovery system or something. And that's the beauty of account abstraction, that you have these programmable accounts. And there are other ways to achieve similar things. Like you could have some off-chain system which then does certain permissioning or access control, and then translates that into like a on-chain signature, or it could be like MPC, where you can also program accounts in a certain way. We see the power of like on-chain modularity mostly in like two ways, like the composability aspect of like, this can be like a community sourced ecosystem of different modules, different features being built by different players, and you build on top of what others have been building, and it's all open source on chain forever there. And the other one is the auditability, where it's super easy to audit these smart contract modules, because like that's just so much also like security tooling around how you verify the integrity of smart contracts, and all of that applies also to these smart account modules.
Got it. And this might be a question for everyone here. And account abstraction, every single blog post I've seen, every single Twitter thread I've seen, they talk about two key things. One is the social sign-in or social login, and then there's the pay gas in any ERC20 token. These definitely are very interesting, but do you think we are missing any other use cases that this account abstraction modular stack can enable in the Web3 UX? Anyone, Lukas, yeah.
So I mean, if you look at the data, it's quite clear that right now 457 is used to sponsor transactions, mostly for people minting NFTs, and you want to do easy onboarding, and they shouldn't own any crypto, and that's probably 95% of all use cases of 457 right now. I think the real potential comes more with like hybrid custody systems, where you might start having an account that's actually controlled by a third party, and they then give you certain permissions, or even you as a user can suddenly say, now I want to have full control, I want to cut cords with this party. Imagine it, you log into Twitter, you have your Twitter account, and Twitter actually manages this account for you. But then if you say you want to move your account, including all your social graph and your messaging and your posts, to a different platform, Farcaster or whatever, then you can leverage account abstraction in a way that you kind of you reconfigure it to be from custodial to non-custodial, and I think that will be where most users will be onboarded in a custodial way, but have a pathway to self-custody.
I mean, it's a really interesting question, because the whole notion of a smart contract account is that it's fully programmable. There's a whole range of kind of creative options that are available. especially if you're doing that compute over state data, over data that's on chain. And so one thing that I'm definitely excited to see as it relates to smart accounts is just, and like folks like Gelato and others are working on this, but just further degrees of automation and basically like things like dollar cost averaging, DeFi quality of life encoded into the account. And then I think it starts to get really interesting when you potentially want to involve off-chain compute and on-chain compute to have automation around when a given account is going to sign over some data. That's some interesting exploration that we've seen. The other thing that I don't know is like talked about a little bit right now, but it's just the opportunities for thinking about the smart account almost as a platform. I guess is functionally what I'm talking about. Like, people don't really like to talk about advertising, but one kind of crazy idea that I've heard come up a few times is folks who are thinking about, what if you could do a video pre-roll ad, like before you watch a YouTube video, but as the way for having some user to watch a video pre-roll ad in order to have their gas sponsored for their transaction. And so that kind of product-oriented thinking, recognizing that the smart account is a platform, and then you can, compute over state data, and then if you wanted to involve off-chain data using a system like Lit could be very relevant there. That's generally where we're at in this industry. It's just so much opportunity for experimentation, but the nature of these experiments is that, like, people use this metaphor that consumer applications are kind of like Hollywood. You're searching for the hits, and so being able to like iterate fast and form hypotheses and then validate them, throw them out, form new ones, like that startup energy as it relates to smart accounts is less about the feature of the smart account itself and more around the ecosystem surrounding it.
I'm just going to add to that part of the opportunity is enabling smart contract account functionality within wallets and pushing wallets to adopt that. And so along with that, some of the things that I find super interesting are users being able to start to adopt multi-party accounts, maybe like shared accounts with other people. Maybe it's a family account or an account with a friend that then they can share the responsibility for that account, and using the wallet simply as a signer, right, that can have access to have authority on those accounts, but also being able to enable counterfactual assets as maybe potentially in the future the primary way that users interact with accounts, rather than an account just being a transaction history and some on-chain assets. When you have counterfactual assets and you can send someone simply, I'm going to send you money, but it doesn't actually transfer until you claim it, right? And then that just eliminates a whole wide range of like people accidentally sending to a wrong address and the money's lost forever, right? There's all kinds of things that you can do when you enable that type of functionality.
Interesting. And on a similar note to what you mentioned, David, with the YouTube example that you just gave, do you see applications themselves integrating their own paymasters or their own bundlers? Do you think that helps enable a better user experience? Maybe a question open to everybody.
I don't know if I have a strong hypothesis there. Lucas? Yeah. TBD?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's some potential to, and it's interesting when the paymaster and the bundler are coming from the same provider, that enables a more seamless experience than having to connect across different ones. So there's definitely also a challenge in the space to try to standardize the way that paymasters and bundlers interact, because if we don't have a standard approach to it, it's actually really hard to program these to work together. And so there's definitely some work to be done around, and I think, Lucas, you're working on some of those, some standards for how smart contract accounts and how account abstraction can function. But I will also say that, one of the other really interesting things that you can do is even, set like a spending cap and have, up to a certain amount. Like maybe you want to play a game or something and say, okay, this paymaster and my accounts, my actions will be bundled, and I can just play this game and spend up to a certain amount of money as I, maybe do certain actions in that game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think apps will less so use paymasters for value capture, but more so to make the user experience more smooth, or to sponsor certain actions where they can then somehow subsidize them in different ways where they capture that value.
Interesting. And you mentioned smart accounts bring a lot of flexibility to the developer. As everybody knows that this is a feature, but it could also be a bug, right? Do you think developers will be spoiled for choice? And what do you think about like one-click solutions, like a privy, like embedded wallets within apps? How do you like balance out the dev X versus the dev flexibility?
I mean, we've made the decision to bias towards developer flexibility. Obviously, like DevX remains a massive priority, but given that our approach is to build a primitive, we don't want to lock anybody into any way of using this system. Those are some of the most exciting days on our team, is when somebody leverages the fundamental technology that we've been working on in a way that we have never imagined before. I'm sure these other guys up here have had similar experiences. And so being able to have that generality is core to the service that we're providing. And then for us, this is essentially, we have two sides of the house inside the team. There's the network work, and then there's the SDK. And then as it relates to DevX and the SDK, we've started with the generalized version, but essentially what the SDK roadmap looks like is moving up that ladder of abstraction, providing things that are more targeted towards specific use cases, having UI elements associated with those use cases. But for us, we started at the base layer as close to the metal as possible, and then that's what the future holds, is moving up that abstraction ladder.
Yeah, I actually think something like Privy and smart accounts are more complementary than a substitute, because you still need the authentication method with a smart account, and Privy is this signing key in that instance, or in ideal case. I think the bigger challenge with embedded wallets is more that like accounts are not that portable anymore, where like every dApp onboards the user with an embedded wallet, it's super smooth, but then the account is only working with that app, and they go to a different app and they give you a new account, and suddenly you'll kind of end up with 100 different accounts across 100 different apps, and that's the UX nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'll just mention is, part of the reason that MetaMask was so successful in the early days was because it made it very convenient for users to integrate with dApps. So I think that convenience for developers is going to drive each wave of adoption, and so I think that there's really nothing negative to say about that. I will mention that, like they had mentioned as well, there are some concerns with respect to embedded wallets and so forth, where we may be taking some steps back in terms of like user safety. And one thing that is very important to MetaMask is that accounts should be portable. Your SRP is always portable. It's definitely a concern when users create an embedded wallet and then have no way to get that wallet to transfer it. But that's something that we're encouraging partners in the ecosystem, to make sure that they build portability into what they're doing. But also that, if the user can create an account and then eventually upgrade that and, move it into a smart contract wallet or move it into a different UX or a different front end, that's amazing. And, the cool thing about smart contract accounts is the fact that it's programmable means that you are not locked into the initial decisions that you made, and the fact that you can then continue to develop it and add features and adapt to what users need, I think is what's super exciting. Like, that's just something that I think we can look forward to for developers to have the ability to do that.
Got it. And I think this anti-portability that you spoke about is kind of the antithesis to your talk as well, where you have like the wallet as a technology being an extension to the human self or herself. So yeah, definitely interesting. So I think the last question for all of you would be, intent-based architectures are making a wave. While it makes a lot of sense on how intent-based architectures work, finding maybe best price discovery, bridging becomes easier. How are wallets preparing for intent-based architectures?
I'll give a very early example, and it's very simple, but it's something that we just recently did. There's a simple kind of intent is like connect and sign in, right? Mm-hmm. And we just enabled something with the MetaMask SDK to take those two steps and turn it into one step within the application, right? So there's so much friction right now when a user has these intents, or they have a combination of operations that they want to submit to a wallet, and then they go to the wallet, and the wallet has like these different steps, and they have to go back and forth with the dApp. It's so painful. Like, nobody wants to deal with with this. And so the ability to batch these things, bundle them, and turn them into fewer actions or simplified actions, and even combine on the gas costs and so forth, that's super powerful. And we're seeing amazing things that people are doing with intents, where they're even saying like you can have an AI companion that just takes like a text-based description of what you want to do and turns it into all the actions and routes it faster, right? So that's just like super cool to see, and it's something that we're working on, enabling developers to be able to do that with snaps and to have the ability to submit those intents into the wallet itself through a snap. Sorry, I think my voice maybe knocked that down.
A powerful answer, no doubt. Interesting. The intents world is super interesting. There's obviously a lot of really fascinating work being done. What I can talk about specifically is some of the work that is happening in the context of lit, where essentially the searchers set up around intents. The system that we built on lit, which lets people execute these JavaScript applications across a distributed key, can function as an alternative to the kind of the proposed intents architecture. And so we've seen a number of teams explore intent-like functionality there, but not in like the intents term of art in the Ethereum context methodology, although the outcome is the same for the user.
Lukas, any thoughts on intent-based architectures?
Not too much to add. I think what's going to be interesting with intents and the intersection of smart accounts is also that right now many of these intent-based systems, they are kind of separate smart contracts that the user gives an ERC20 approval to, and that they have some logic with resolvers to settle that. I think with smart accounts you actually have a way that's more, you have intents more tightly integrated into your account, and you don't give ERC20 approvals to something else, but you have a more sophisticated permissioning system where you then can say, I want to pay with $10 from my account, and I don't really care what asset is being used, or use one of these free stable coins, and I don't have to give approvals to each of these stable coins to some external contracts. It just opens up a little bit the design space, and hopefully also has more powerful solutions based on that.
Interesting. No, thank you so much, everyone, for this. I personally learned a lot on this. I initially started looking at account abstraction, I think around Jan of this year, and I think we've come quite far since then in education and adoption, like Lukas mentioned. So I do think it's going to be very, very interesting, and we're going to see a lot of users come on board much easier thanks to account abstraction and everything that you folks are building. So thank you so much. Round of applause for each of our panelists here. Thank you so much.